right? So, I just gotta say, I thought Ice King, Mountain Man, or whatever looked like Darth Maul. What do you guys think?
This never occurred to me. I was reading online. Everyone is basically consensus that the horns on his head is basically a crown. He's the king.
A crown for a king.
So that makes sense, I guess.
Yeah, I think so.
The one guy walks around rides around on his horse butt naked all the time, and then you got this dude who's like in like full armor or something ridiculous.
Welcome back to the Cast Beyond the Wall. I'm your host, Caleb Masters, joined today from Oklahoma City.
Daniel Stahl.
Also in the hot, dry desert.
Austin Lucari.
Thank you to our partners at WeGotThisCovered.com, one of the greatest sources for all your gaming, TV, and movie news. Seriously, they got some great content, guys. Go check it out. And we are also very blessed to be joined in the presence of a good friend, fellow Game of Thrones fan. Sir, introduce yourself.
Ryan Siggers. Nice to be here, guys. Thanks for having me.
We're really stoked to have Ryan on. It's going to be fun. If the audio quality is a little inconsistent, dealing with some weather issues, but don't worry. Don't worry, especially those of you not watching live. It's going to turn out great. Before we get into our discussion, though, we always like to get to know our guest hosts a little bit before we get really into the discussion. Kind of what are their sensibilities? Where do they fall in the Game of Thrones spectrum? So starting off, we're going to do a quick little interview with Mr. Siggers here. So Ryan, could you tell us a little bit about your history with Game of Thrones?
I actually didn't start watching until about a week before the second season started. I'd been seeing all these memes and stuff on the internet, winter is coming, and all these photos of basically the Starks. So I walked into Walmart and I bought the first season on Blu-ray, watched the first episode, realized my fiance and I realized we were hooked, watched the whole thing in like a week and started up at the second season, and we've watched ever since. I have not read books at all, so I'm completely blind on whether things happen or not, if it's, I guess, canon or not.
Oh, well, it's all technically canon, I suppose, or at least that's what they say. Well, congratulations, sir. You've actually been watching longer than me because I didn't start watching until the second season concluded. So we know a little bit about your history with the show, but if you had to pick a favorite character, could you tell us a little bit about who you'd pick and why?
Well, I got your outline. I was looking at that, and I couldn't narrow it down between two, either Podrick or Bronn. Podrick, because ever since the scene in the brothel, what was the last season of the season before? Captain Stud, he won me over right there. And Bronn, just everything that comes out of his mouth is just liquid gold. I mean, Velveeta shells and cheese, delightful. He seems to have the only real sensibilities to me, like a man of the world, and he's cast in with these people that are, elites, the Lannisters and everything, and he's keeping it real. He's keeping it real down there at King's Landing, and I'm waiting for him to do something just absolutely awesome. I mean, we saw in his sparring match this week, he's a no-nonsense fighter, which I laughed out loud. I couldn't stop laughing when he pimp slapped Jaime Lannister with his own gold hand. I mean, that's pretty tight. So, until Podrick does something absolutely awesome with Brienne of Tarth, I'm going to lean towards Bronn right now.
I got to say, guys, if there was going to be a Bronn of all the people I've interviewed on this show so far, Ryan Siggers would be Bronn. Sellsword galore, absolutely. What about your least favorite? I mean, there's a lot of pretty detestable characters on the show, and I forgot to mention Joffrey's off limits by default.
Yeah. And you know what? I didn't hate Joffrey. I think he brought such a balance to the show, that evil, someone for everyone really to hate.
Right.
And I believe this might be your favorite characters, and one of them, Littlefinger. I cannot stand Littlefinger. Ever since he pulled the knife on Lord Stark and put it up to his throat, I wanted to fight the guy. I don't know if I can ever meet that actor in real life. I might have to start fighting him. It's become too real for me. I get too emotional. I see him with Sansa, and I just want to fight the dude.
Just kill that accent-changing bastard.
Oh, yeah. How dare he.
Man, listen, hey, I can't blame you on Littlefinger. I love Littlefinger and respectable, but the guy is absolutely detestable. He, backstabbed Ned Stark. But I will say, at least when he backstabbed Ned Stark, like a tool, he told him ahead of time that he was going to do it. So, in a sense, it was a little bit of Ned Stark's own fault. Just gotta say.
He really did, and I'm one of the few people I really blame Ned Stark for all of this. There was a much more brutal way to go about the entire death of King Baratheon, and if I were the Hand of the King at that time, I don't think any of this would have happened, because I would have probably just killed Joffrey straight up. and been like, "Oh, sorry, he wasn't really his kid," and then just dealt with the repercussions later. I'm not a smart man.
Well, no. You know, it's great though, because the thing is, and go back and watch season 1 if you get a chance, listeners and co-host. Like, Ned Stark had so many stinking ways to get out of what happened. Like, he's had so many ways.
You should have taken the realm for yourself.
Give me an hour and I can put 100 swords at your command.
And what should I do with 100 swords?
Strike!
You are now Hand of the King and Protector of the Realm. All of the power is yours. You need only reach out and take it.
Yeah, Ryan, at least your method, it would have got you killed, but at least you would have accomplished something.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I know.
Ned Stark got killed and accomplished nothing, so...
What are you talking about? He started a war.
I'd be dead, but... yeah, well, his son did.
Good job, Nedders. If you had to pick a house that you would like to belong to, or one that represents your value, or closest represents your values, which house do you think you'd go with?
Hasn't been much done with the house in the shows. Not sure about the books. Just a little bit of wiki reading. House Mormont. Really liked both of the men that they've shown. I'm hoping they get up to Bear Island at some point, so we see all of that. Just kind of that cool. We live way off. You know, we're even more northern than the Northerners. You know, on an island, secluded. Kind of cool. You know, I'm not sure what draws me to it. The bear.
The bear, it's your spirit animal.
The bear,
My spirit animal.
Only you can prevent forest fires.
All right, we are so happy to have Ryan on. Thank you so much for giving us some insight into your relationship with Game of Thrones, sir.
Yes, sir.
All right, guys, we're going to move into our own question of the week, where all four of us are going to kind of tackle a little subject here about Westeros. If you were a man living in Westeros, would you be a soldier, a sellsword, or a man of the Night's Watch, and why? Austin Lucari, starting with you.
I gotta go with sellsword. I got a couple reasons. One, the soldiers, they just die in droves. They're totally useless. They're pawns. They're just like pieces of meat. The Night's Watch, I don't think I could abide with the celibacy. I don't think it's going to work for me. And if I'm going to kill people, I might as well make money for it. So sellsword's the way to go.
You dishonorable piece of trash.
Most of the sellswords are still alive in the show. Just going to point that out.
It's a true story. All right, Mr. Daniel Stoll, who would you go with?
I think I would go with Swellsword, just because, you know, a Swellsword sort of gets to pick and choose who they fight for. You know, obviously they have different sorts of people asking them to fight for them or kill people for them or whatever. But in the end, you sort of get to decide who you fight for. And whereas if you're a soldier, you're sort of stuck with whatever house you live in, you know, wherever you live or whatever. So for that reason, I think I would choose Swellsword, just because I get to pick who I fight for. So.
Very good choice. Wise man. You'd make it long in Westeros. Mr. Ryan Siggers, what would you choose?
Well, I don't believe it would be a choice for me, knowing how the way I grew up. At some point, I'm going to be forced to either pick Death or the Night's Watch, so I guess I'd have to be on the Night's Watch, or I'd have lost a hand or something by now.
I'm going to go soldier. Now, why go soldier? Because Austin's right, because they're all just going to get slaughtered or whatever. But you got to remember, who were soldiers on Game of Thrones? Ned Stark was a soldier, and while it got him, he is dead. But he made it a long time, and he actually got to rule over Winterfell for a long time. That'd be a pretty sweet gig. Who else was a soldier? Robert Baratheon. Okay.
Dead.
Yeah, but that's because he was a drunk. Okay. All right. Third example, Stannis Baratheon. Oh wait, I kind of hate Stannis. Oof. Yeah. Soldiers actually get to they actually believe in something, and okay, while believing in something often, by often I mean all the time, gets you killed in Game of Thrones. There is something noble to be said, and I think that's why people like Ned Stark. Because there is something noble to be said about a man with a cause, and a man with the belief system, and a man with a code. That doesn't mean you survive, but I mean, come on, you get to stand for something, and then you die.
The Hound has a code, and he's a sellsword and doing just fine. Gotta have a code.
You know who else is a sellsword you know who else is a soldier who I really like is Thoros. So, Beric Dondarrion, also a soldier.
That's true.
And hey, I might get to come back to life like 8 times. That'd be a pretty sweet gig if you ask me. Now it's time for us to move on and do our review of this week's episode, Oathkeeper.
If I told you to leave the capital right now and find Sansa and bring me her head, would you do it?
He wasn't involved in Joffrey's death, but you were.
It wouldn't matter to Cersei. She won't rest until my head's on a spike.
You gonna fight for him now?
You're a steward, you traitors bastard. Give me an excuse.
I will answer injustice with justice.
The whole episode to me felt really dark. Like,
Yeah.
it had its moments and funny moments. I'm sure we'll get to them, but just overall, it was really. I don't know.
Really was.
Yeah, it was a darker episode.
Yeah, I mean, even by Game of Thrones standards, you're just like, holy crap, they're going there. Wow.
Yeah, it didn't have the sexual assault and murders that we're used to, and it still felt dark to me.
Oh, gosh. Well, but it did have a rape pit there at the end. But
that's true. Yeah,
the pit of rape.
As a man was drinking wine out of Jorah Mormont's skull, so yeah.
Yeah, all you see in the background is copulations.
Apparently, based on the outrage on social media sites, was a spoiler-filled episode, which is kind of funny because it doesn't usually happen that way. But it was pretty exciting. It set up a lot of new storylines, really. Last week was kind of resolving a lot of things, and this one's setting up a lot of new stuff. So I'm pretty excited about what's to come.
Yeah, I totally agree. You get beware them. If you're reading those Game of Thrones books, you better stop now because there's a spoiler alert. We are about to spoil the Game of Thrones book series, guys, so you better watch out.
Wiener next to another wiener. Wiener, wiener. Two wieners alongside yet another wiener. Wiener party, wiener party, party soft. Wiener party, wieners nice and soft, non-erect wieners. Flopping wieners, flopping wieners, dangle wieners, dangle wieners in my bed.
Stop, please! I can't take any more.
What the fuck?
Yeah, I have to agree with Austin. I feel like it was set. It was a build-up episode more than an episode where a lot was happening that was just like, oh wow. There was some awesome moments, but I feel like next week is going to be building off of a lot of the things. The Craster's Keep and stuff. It's escalating to something. Between that and the White Walkers and all the stuff with the Night's Watch preparing obviously for a battle. With the reinforcing of the fortress and everything. I think it's building towards something.
Yeah, I totally with you. And, it's so exciting to see that the North is actually going somewhere. Because I think for 3 seasons, I mean, there's been some, especially Beyond the Wall, there's some cool stuff we've seen. But really, there hasn't been a whole lot of eventful things that have happened in the North. So, while this episode doesn't necessarily deliver like a big, impactful moment per se, it really is kind of really moving forward and developing in ways we haven't seen yet on this show, because you do have Bran Hodor and them or at Crasher's Keep. We had, well, holy crap, that's actually going somewhere. And Jon's taking his men over to take those guys out, the mutineers out. So I mean, it is really interesting. Again, this is more development, and I think it is going to continue to build throughout the season. But what I like about this is really the show is event driven. Every once or twice a season, we'll have one really big event, and then everything else is just building momentum to the next thing.
I actually really enjoyed this episode. I thought it was actually really exciting, and while yes, I do agree, clearly they're building up a lot of things for the future and things like that. I do feel, especially the last 15 minutes, were very exciting. But I actually, as I was rewatching it a second time today, there are a lot of really good scenes in this episode that was really exciting, and I feel like the last 15 minutes, for understandably and for good reason, sort of overshadowed some of the rest of the scenes in the episode. But yeah, like especially with some of the Littlefinger stuff was super exciting. Daenerys' storyline was really exciting, and there's a lot of cool things happening there. Some of the Jaime scenes were some of my favorite scenes.
Daenerys takes a city in the beginning of the episode, in the first 10 minutes of the episode. And we just it's something that, like, we almost all kind of forgot. I mean, to some degree, forgot about because we got so wrapped up in the last 15 minutes, which were great 15 minutes. But yeah, like you said, there's a lot of good stuff that's coming out of that too. And again, I think while her taking the city is an event, I don't think I think it's more or less still building to something bigger for her to come.
And I think it lost impact because a lot like with the dragons, it's a money thing for HBO. That the sacking of a city should have been a huge thing, showing thousands of people fighting, but they can't just do that. They can't have a Helm's Deep scene every day, every episode.
It was so disappointing.
Yeah, showed like 6 guys stabbing one man. It's like, and we win.
Last episode you have like 10,000 people outside of the castle.
Yeah.
You've got siege weapons, all this stuff, and then it ends up like, oh, there's a riot. War over.
And it is little moments like that do remind you. Well, it's a double-edged sword. In one hand, it gives them the edge to be more creative. Like Daenerys uses some more interesting tactics to take the city. She doesn't just like go head on and Helm's Deep it. But the flip side is, holy crap, this should have been way more epic. And that's where the few times
we haven't seen a real battle in so long since like.
Blackwater's the only true battle we've ever seen on this show, to its fullest extent. And there's reason for that. I mean, I think we're going to see a huge battle at the end of this season. But I think this is one of the few instances where the TV show budget really does show. And it's not on the surface. Like if you just follow the story on the surface, it's like, yeah, she used that tactic. She didn't have to take the city with crazy epic siege, but. Especially when you build it up the way that they have. And they did the same thing with Young Kai. Yeah. Huge army right outside the city. And then they have like one really cool scene where Jorah...
And Dario just beheads some people.
Yeah, and then it's like, and they laid down their weapons and we took the city. What's up? The Astapor thing, that was pretty good last season. We actually got to see some pretty cool stuff there. But, there's not a lot of ways in the big battles.
And plus, they want us to use our imaginations, create the story in our mind.
We have our imagination.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I watch a TV show. I'm not smart enough for that crap.
It took an hour and then I could take a nap, That's why TV's better than books,
Oh. Sorry, excuse my illiterate friend who's co-hosting on the show this week, but All right, guys. Well, let's go ahead and get really into the details here. There's so much to talk about this week, but to start off, let's go to Marine. This is the opening scene this week. We got to open with a Dany scene. That never happens. I can't remember the last time that actually happened, when we saw straight off the bat a direct follow-up to last week's episode. And we get to see Melisandre have a great scene with Grey Worm right before Grey Worm goes and pulls some SEAL Team 6 move to take out the city.
Throughout this whole scene where Grey Worm like runs into the city, I kept picturing like if Obama had killed Osama bin Laden. Because he looks just like him. It's crazy.
This is the real Zero Dark 30, ladies and gentlemen, the real story.
If that's not on like Conan O'Brien or something, where they make fun of that kind of stuff. Yeah, you're exactly right. But before that, the reading scene, I like the fact that she was teaching him to read in English, but then they were speaking back and forth in whatever their native tongue is. Like, why wouldn't she teach him to read in the native tongue that he's already speaking in English, but he doesn't speak English?
Yeah, he's learned to read a foreign language before he knows how to read his own language, which is a little ridiculous.
Fair enough. I did think this was a great scene. On another note, though, we got a little bit of just a hint of development between Grey Worm and Melisandre, and I like the Melisandre, so it was kind of cool. She apparently was kidnapped as a slave and really kind of has a deep hole in her heart from where she was ripped away from the beaches as a child. Sad. As opposed to Grey Worm, who's like, yeah, I don't even remember what it was like before I got castrated, so... Yeah.
I assumed he was born into it.
Oh, you think darkness is your ally? You merely adopted the dark. I was born in it, molded by it. I didn't see the light until I was already a man. By then it was nothing to me but blinding.
They go more in season 3. They talked about the process a little bit, and I can't remember exactly where it starts, but it does start when they are very, 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 very young. I think they're a little older, but I mean, basically, yes, they are raised in it. They're basically born to slaves, and then to that point, the strongest survive, kind of like Sparta style or whatever, and then they're castrated and all that jazz. But moving on, we get to see him pull some really epic Zero Dark 30 moves as he climbed into the city and went undercover to convince the other slaves that they should take the city. What do you guys think?
I thought it was a cool scene. We get to see a little bit of Grey Worm and his leadership, which was fun. I like Grey Worm a lot, so that was cool to get that development from him.
I'm not sure if it's in the books or not, or if this is the, like we talked about, a money saving tactic. Show small groups moving around, or if it's a military tactic that she's using basically the slaves to do her fighting for her, to take over the city for her, so she's not wasting her Unsullied and the sellswords that she got, last season with
Dario and them.
Yeah, Dario and his
Second
men,
Sons, I think.
Yeah, Second Sons. Yeah.
It's definitely different from the books. I don't know if it's. I mean, I don't know. It's still a tactical invasion on her part. Either way, the tactic is different. So, I mean, I think it works both ways. Yeah, it is a money saver thing, but it does showcase her smartness, and it showcases Grey Worm's leadership skills that we really haven't got to see him do a whole lot yet. So we got to see Obama step up and do something cool this week. And
one of the interesting things before he actually enters the city, and he's still talking to Melisandre, she basically asked him about his motivations for doing this, and he says, I want to kill all the masters. I want to kill them all. Which is interesting because after the city is taken, Grey Worm kind of like, he says basically, I want to kill the masters, and Dany's asking, can I use this army for King's Landing? I don't think she can. I don't think the Unsullied would fight for her if they're not able to further their goals of basically freeing more slaves. And since slavery is not really allowed in Westeros, I don't believe, I don't think they have any motivation to continue fighting for her.
She's got the whip. When she took control of them.
No, but remember
but I don't know if they really. I mean, there's that, but they don't seem like they care about that much anymore.
No, because remember she doesn't she toss it aside? If I'm correct, she says, "I want you to fight for me because you choose to."
Right.
So do you think that possibly the Unsullied could turn on her?
I don't know, turn on her so much as abandon her.
Abandon her.
Yeah, I think they respect her and what she did, but their loyalties lie with their land and freeing the slaves, and that's all they really want to do. Whereas Dany is using the slaves for an army. I mean, she wants to free them, but it's purely a means to further her goals of taking Westeros.
Well, absolutely. It's a double. Again, it's a double motivation there because she detests slaves and slavery. She felt herself that she was raised as a slave in her younger years. So there's that. But you're right. The more slaves she frees, the bigger her army gets, and she's definitely not playing dumb to that. What did you guys think of her move here? So she goes in, takes the city. Great tactic to take the city, but then she has, if you guys remember back from the first episode where the slaves were mounted on posts, she has the same thing to the owners, going against Barristan's advice. So I think that's interesting that she kind of ignored his advice. She said, I'm going to repay injustice with justice as opposed to mercy, which is what Barristan said. What do you guys think about this?
Yeah, I really liked what Barristan had to say, and I think his point is why I have frustrations with Dany is the point that Barristan is trying to make is because there is going to be a time that comes along where she is going to need to respond to injustice with mercy, and I don't think she has the ability to will have the ability to understand it and then make that decision. At some point, she's going to have to. She can't just, you guys had slaves and you don't follow me, so I'm going to kill you all. Like, I feel like at some point she's going to have to come to a spot where she decides.
She doesn't have the ability to kind of decipher and discern when is the right time to do what. She kind of lacks that skill. So for her, it's just easy.
Right.
Well, they did this, so this is what we're gonna repay them back with that. Which, maybe in this particular instance might be fine, but I think you're right. This is definitely a recurring character trait that, good or bad, might end up costing her one day.
I mean, I do agree. Like, she should have followed their advice. On the same token, I feel like her stance is, they're her advisors, yes, and they've been around a long time, yes, but what have they done? Really, how many lives have they saved compared to her? Jorah was selling slaves himself.
Yeah.
And Barristan, I mean, probably just sat alongside while Aegon was going to burn the entire city. So how good is their advice? Like, what is it worth? I don't know. She's saved a lot of people, done a lot of really good things that Barristan and Jorah would never have done because they don't have the guts to do it. While it is frustrating, and I don't think she has, she needs to be more merciful if she wants to like win over the hearts and minds of people. Ultimately, I don't think she respects their opinion that much because they've never really done anything.
Yeah, I agree with Austin. What was it, 163 people she basically crucified. I'm assuming there were more masters in the city than that, so she didn't kill all of them. It almost seems better to me that if she would have killed all the masters than picking just 163, I guess, at random. Because that's where the injustice of it, she's saying it's justice, but if she really wanted to, I assume she's trying to unify the freed slaves to her, by punishing the masters in the way that they punished, the slave girls. But it feels like Austin was talking about, she can't kill everybody that gets in her way between here and, King's Landing, that is having slaves, and just because she doesn't like slavery. I hate to get this so political stance on it, kind of a real world stance in a show that has flying dragons and ice monsters, but it's a poor political and really military move, because people are going to start to turn against her in other neighboring cities, and she might run into some issues when she's on the move, I think.
But on the other hand, her inexperience blinds her to a lot of the dangers of the world we live in. And I think it was Ben who mentioned last week that she could easily misplace her trust, and that's what her advisors are there to do, to try to guide her. And I'm not saying she has to listen to every single thing they say, but I actually can't remember the last time she did listen to anything either of them said. And the thing is, she does highly regard them. Last episode, she was talking about when they were all volunteering. She's like, no, I need you. And that's why she sent Dario out there. She values them, but she doesn't really show it very well. And I think at some point, her lack of wisdom and experience is going to get her hurt if she doesn't try to at least take these things into consideration.
Oh, I guarantee it. But I'm just saying, from her perspective, she's accomplished more by the age of 17 than any of them combined.
And really, she did misplace her trust. I mean, originally, Mormont was there to kill her for a pardon, to go back to Westeros.
Right.
He's only still there and helping her because he's clearly attracted to her. I mean, that kind of won him over to begin with, and then probably seeing dragons on her naked body at the end of season 1 probably kind of
sealed the deal.
It's kind of like one of those, it sealed the deal.
Khaleesi.
Moving on, though, we're gonna head to King's Landing, and as Ryan kind of hinted at earlier, the first scene we got acquainted with Bronn training Jaime with his wrong hand there, and it was quite the fight. I rather enjoyed it myself. He ended up getting owned with the golden hand.
Everything you need, find right here in me. I've got the Midas touch. Everything I touch turns to gold. All sugar. I've got the Midas touch. Baby, let me touch your body and your soul.
Bronn kind of guilts Jaime into going to see Tyrion, but the whole slapping Jaime with his own hand is probably the most hilarious thing in the show this week.
Really, the meat of the scene was when Jaime went to go visit Tyrion, and I thought this was a really great exchange. Again, I love seeing these two interact, and this is something in the books we didn't get to see up to this point, actually. Jaime doesn't visit Tyrion before the trial, so this is really great. I love this stuff, and I thought it was a great exchange.
The Kingslayer brothers. You like it? I like it. You really asking if I killed your son?
Are you really asking if I'd kill my brother? How can I help you?
I love the way he laid that out on Front Street like that,
Oh, yeah.
Really, it's your son,
Yeah, I thought it was kind of nice because, that everyone else is kind of playing this game, pretending that, Tywin's just kind of pretending Joffrey's not their son, and Cersei's just ignoring that fact. But no. Tyrion's your son, not even going to play games with this thing.
It's really the first person I think to say that to Jaime. I can't think of anyone else to have done that to this point.
About the son, Brienne of Tarth, what was it, 2 episodes ago, kind of makes that backhanded comment towards Cersei about, I love him like a brother, and kind of stares her down a little bit, which I found hilarious. But no one's ever actually said, this is your son, and why would you think I'd kill him? That's it was a good moment, between the two of them. It showed a lot of the development between the two brothers that, like Caleb said, has not been shown.
Right.
The Kingslayer brothers.
Yeah.
Kingslayer brothers. Which was hilarious.
I love how Tyrion said that. And I think we've talked about this before on the podcast, but Jaime doesn't seem to have a sense of otherness to, he doesn't, it's almost like he doesn't view Joffrey as his own son. he's never took that fathership role, you know, for Joffrey.
No ownership.
And had no ownership of Joffrey. So it's just interesting that Tyrion phrased it that way. Sort of just, you know, that was your son, by the way. I don't know, like, we know that they have somewhat respect from each other from all the conversations that other people have said about them. They have this relationship we've talked about, and it was kind of cool to see that kind of play out on screen. We haven't got to see them much together on the show because Jaime's been captured since season 1 and Tyrion's been obviously King's Landing. So this is one of the first moments we've got to see of them, and it was really fun to see them at least interact in that kind of, hey, we're some of the Lannisters that get along.
You know, it was almost like without any real judgment of, hey, you were having sex with your sister. Like, Tyrion was like almost just fine with that, like no problem. I guess he's always
probably. Yeah, he's probably came to terms with that years ago.
Yeah, exactly. He's just like, yeah, they do it. I mean, look, they all have blonde hair. They're all their kids. So it's an interesting little triangle. Not a love triangle per se. It's like a brotherly, I don't know.
Murder triangle.
Murder triangle. I mean, because Cersei wants to kill Tyrion, you know, and Jaime loves Cersei. Jaime does what Cersei says to get Cersei's way. But then he's not also loves Tyrion. So, you know, it's just a very interesting family dynamic they've got going there.
Yeah, Jaime is changed so much from the beginning of the show too. I mean, but Darcy, my fiance, is probably Jaime's probably her favorite character. Just the way he's almost done a 180, leaving out a few little things. You know, the sexual assault from an episode ago, and you know, little things like that. But he's really changed so much that he's becoming such a better developed character. You know, with all the different dynamics, that it was great to see him, you know, interacting with his family, and it brings up a great point. You know, like you're talking about Cersei trying to convince him to kill his brother. Who do you listen to? They're all family, but then they've got the added dynamic that they're also lovers. So who do you listen to? And I think it's developing into something cool. You know, it's a really well crafted character.
I would say aside from Tyrion, he is the most developed character.
Oh yeah,
I can't think of one better. I mean, you have like Dany, which gets a lot of screen time, but I wouldn't say she's that well developed.
She's one-dimensional, maybe two. You know.
Yeah.
She doesn't have a lot of.
She's definitely. She's not very. She's developed. I'd say she's developed, but she's not particularly complex.
That's probably a better way.
Jaime is easily one of the more complex characters, and this is a great segue into the Cersei scene, because he's caught in the middle of all these contradictions. Now I'll reference back to season 2. He's in the cage with Robb and Catelyn.
You are no knight. You have forsaken every vow you ever took.
So many vows. They make you swear and swear. Defend the king, obey the king, obey your father, protect the innocent, defend the weak. And what if your father despises the king? What if the king massacres the innocent? It's too much. No matter what you do, you're forsaking one vow or another.
And then I think the same type of dilemma he has comes into play here, when where Cersei basically says, "You swore an oath to the enemy, Catelyn Stark," and he said, "But I only said that to get to you." But now she doesn't love him, and that was his identity, right? His knighthood. So he broke his knighthood to be in love to get to Cersei, but she no longer loves him. So the question is, who is Jaime anymore? And I think this is what's really great about him, because we were seeing him come out of he's in the fire, developing, being molded into a new character, because he can't rely on Cersei like he used to, and he's had to face all these different questions he's had. But then she's just so cold, and she's like, "How dare you visit Tyrion?" "Well, he's my brother. Of course I'm going to visit him." She's like, "Oh, well, I think you should go." I thought this was a very interesting tactic by her after she did the whole Catelyn Stark thing. She's like, "What if I told you to go find Sansa?" And I think that was a ploy to get Jaime to leave, because she knows that Jaime will ultimately stick up for Tyrion.
I didn't think about that before, but that totally makes sense.
I took it as also that she wants him gone after their incident at the funeral.
Yeah.
I think that was obviously part of the formality between the two of them. They're on a very, you know, prickly situation between the two of them with the whole "I forced you to have sex with me next to your dead son" issue, which was all over, I don't know, social media, as far as that's not how it happens in the books. It was much more consensual, and they don't understand why it was written into basically a rape.
The director always maintained that it wasn't a rape scene, right? And in this scene, I would think if the actors, or if it was if they thought it was a rape, she would have been a bit more scornful towards him, like wouldn't ever received him, wouldn't have called for him, things like that. So it's almost like I felt like this scene kind of gave credence to the idea that
it was consensual,
that it was not supposed to be a rape, and that it was honestly just really bad direction last week when it came off that way, like pretty blatantly. I could take it either way, honestly. If it wasn't a rape, it was really, really bad direction and horrible editing and just all around bad decision making.
It was poor execution. If that was the intent, I think it was very poor execution. And the way the episode played that off this week, I feel like it was going for the consensual, and really, I mean, it was forced in the sense that Jaime was initiating hardcore, but I think it was meant for us to get the vibe that by the time that scene was over, she was consensual to the agreement. But I having rewatched that scene, even after reading what the director said, I still didn't get that feel. I'd have to agree with Austin.
A poor job of it.
Yes, Game of Thrones can make mistakes, and I'm not saying from an adaptation standpoint. If they had changed it and had legitimacy to it, that's interesting. But we'll see if this comes back up later through the season. But based on the way they react to that scene this week, I really don't feel like it was ever intended to be anything but consensual.
But Ryan did. Ryan did feel that's why he was sending him away, which, if that's what happened in that scene, then it would give credence to that.
I didn't feel like so much it was her trying to send him away as more or less trying to see where he truly is, because she knows that he's like a good guy and that he's an honorable guy. As much as people want to hate on him or whatever, she knows that about him. Was that it was more or less trying to see, because Jaime's always said, I did it to come to see you. All these things I did, I was trying to do for you. And so then she proposes this counter suggestion. You gave your honor and word that you would do this. I say, but to do this, you have to give up that. And are you willing to do that? And we even see him hesitate in that. He's sort of like, we see that he tries to even uphold that vow that he gave by sending Brienne to do work for him, basically, to go and find Sansa and protect her, which is not what Cersei wants. So we're starting to see him first not do what Cersei exactly wants him to do, and second, even going against what she wants and honoring something else that he promised he would do.
Yeah, it seems like she's becoming less conniving and more crazy.
Yes,
like her evil before was so precise, and now she's like a crazy woman just running around and screaming and accusing and.
We have found the witch. May we burn her?
I definitely got that vibe more than an evil, cunning woman. I got the crazy woman vibe from her this episode.
Yeah.
I mean, we've seen Cersei be really smart, but she always had that security. Right now, her security blanket's off, though. She's pretty much relying on alcohol. Yeah. She for some reason doesn't really want Jaime to be be there for her in the way that she used to rely on that. And Joffrey's dead, so she's kind of out that too. So, I mean, yeah, I'd say she's a lot less conniving and cunning and just kind of like out to get whoever's hurt her at this point. Before we hop into Marjorie and Elena, I think we really need to talk about the Littlefinger scene with Sansa.
Yes.
This was guys, I love the Littlefinger scenes. I love the Littlefinger. He's really evil, and you do get some really great insight into his motives this week.
Apparently he's a pedophile.
No.
A little bit.
Kind of pedophile.
I didn't get that vibe. He said he wanted he said he wanted everything.
He caresses her and says everything.
He puts his arm on
a little whisper Irish voice.
He puts his hand on her, but I never took it as I want you.
Oh, it's super creepy.
I guess I'm not to take it that way.
I would say it's creepy, but I definitely didn't get the I want you vibe. I got the I want the world vibe.
Yeah, exactly. I want it all.
I got the I wanted your mom, now she's dead, so you're batter up, girl.
Exactly.
Well, and second thing, guys, you have to remember this is, even if that is the case, this is Game of Thrones, and that is totally acceptable by that society standards.
Oh, yeah.
Not that it makes it any less creepy, but I didn't take that vibe, but hey, what do I know? But anyway, either way, you got some insight into his character and how he does things.
My friendship with the Lannisters was productive, but Joffrey, a vicious boy with a crown on his head, is not a reliable ally. And who could trust a friend like that?
Who could trust you?
I don't want friends like me. My new friends are predictable, very reasonable people. As for what happened to Joffrey, well, that was something my new friends wanted very badly. Nothing like a thoughtful gift to make a new friendship grow strong.
He kind of reveals that he was behind the poison of Joffrey, even if he didn't actually do it. It was all his scheme to kind of climb the ladder.
This concludes the investigation, I think, this week.
I don't know. I think until I see a CSI style flashback that shows someone crunching up the necklace, like Ninja sprinkling it into like date rape sprinkling it into his cup, like all this like the go back. It wouldn't surprise me if he said those things to win over Sansa, considering how much Sansa hated Joffrey. It's Littlefinger. He's so conniving. I assume everything he says is a lie at this point, and I just want to hit him in the face with a claw hammer.
I did too. I did too. But after he says that, so after he kind of reveals who he's working with and stuff, which have we said that yet?
He's working with we haven't said he is working for Olenna. We will definitely hit on that in the next scene. But yes, he is indeed working with Olenna Tyrell.
So if you go back and watch now, episode 2, you can remove the stone from the necklace.
You can?
It's very subtle. So it's when she walks up to tell Sansa, oh, who would kill a man at his own wedding? Well, she's got the necklace on, and if you look really, really closely, the shot of Sansa beforehand, before she comes up to talk to her, she's got all the beads, all the jewels. And she goes up and talks to her, and she does this move where she touches her neck and, moves her hand down her neck.
Plays with her hair a little bit,
Plays
too.
with her hair a little bit, too, yeah. Takes it, and then if you look very, very closely, the next scene, it's gone. In which case, you have the whole thing with the wine cup where we were trying to follow the wine cup. Well, if you go back and watch it, specifically, there is a scene where Marjorie takes the wine cup and sets it down on the table, and that's when the cake comes in. You're like, oh, the cake! And it cuts away from the cup. And then the next thing we know, Joffrey's sipping on the cup, and he's dead.
All right, well, thank God it's concluded. I thought it was going to be a John Aaron moment where we'll never find out.
We're still never going to find that shit out.
The rage.
John Aaron, maybe one day.
Apparently they shoved a jewel in John Aaron's ear. That's what they did.
Very Shakespearean.
Littlefinger, the way he talks, I'm more in the camp of Caleb where I just can't help but have some level of respect for this guy. Just his intellectual process, the way he thinks, the way he talks is just so fantastic. He even says, my new friends, I gave them a gift so that we can grow strong. He straight up, like, just the way he talks, like for those of you that don't know, that is the Tyrell motto, house motto is grow strong. Like, he's so brilliant, and whoever does like the dialogue for him is just him. The way the actor delivers it, just so great, and I just love all of his scenes.
Aidan Gillen, man, I love him, and that's what I'm saying about Littlefinger. And Ryan, feel free to barrage us and tell us where we're wrong. But he is pretty dang despicable. The way he maneuvers, he understands how to maneuver around this world. He killed Joffrey, befriended the Tyrells, took Sansa, and framed Tyrion, and all in one fell swoop. And that's just fantastic. I mean, not too many people can pull it off. And the thing that constantly blows my mind about Littlefinger is he does all this stuff and nobody has a clue. No one. And that's what makes him so dangerous, for one. And two, that's what makes him so brilliant. You're like, well, dang, man, you really had to think this. I mean, he really had to think this through about how he was going to go through and do it. And that is respectable. I can't say the guy's a good guy. I really can't. But, man, there's just something about someone who is able to plan and execute flawlessly.
Why do it at the wedding? I don't understand. Because there were so many other people there to tie it to? Why do it at the wedding?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I took it as there were too many people you could have as a suspect, and also a very public spectacle.
He's also he's also there. I mean, he's supposed to be in the Vale, so that removes him completely from the conversation. I mean, I don't know.
Because no one was going to be asking, why weren't you at the wedding?
The Tyrion thing just sort of happened because there's no way he could have predicted that Joffrey was going to pour the wine on him, and then that Joffrey was going to make him his
or that Tyrion was going to be the one picking up the cup when Joffrey was pointing.
So I feel like the Tyrion was just an effect of everything that happened. I don't think that was part of the plan.
I haven't exonerated the Lannisters yet. That whole thing with Cersei sending away the one guy that could cure poisons is a little ridiculous. I haven't let that one go yet.
Okay, well, there could be more. There very well could be more to the story because, as we know in Westeros, conspiracy is never what it seemed.
There's one line I just want to say because just when Littlefinger delivers it, it just speaks so volumes to his character.
A man with no motive is a man no one suspects. Always keep your foes confused. If they don't know who you are or what you want, they can't know what you plan to do next.
And what it goes back to is this man is a man with truly with no friends. Varys says so as much last season. It's a man with no friends.
Right.
No one really know. I mean, even us, the audience, doesn't really know what his long game is.
Oh yeah, I have no idea what he wants. Like, I mean, I believe he wants the throne, but I don't. But there's more to it than that. Like I don't know what he's doing.
He's just like he's a sadistic little bastard. He likes doing things for fun. That's all he does.
Oh no, I don't think he's sadistic at all. No, he's not sadistic. I don't think he would ever torture anybody. He would have others torture for him, but he would never do it.
Yes. He would never get his hands dirty. He will never get his hands dirty.
No, he will not get his hands dirty whatsoever. He won't do terrible things, and I don't think it's in his nature to do terrible things, but it is in his nature to persuade people to do terrible things for him.
He would let you do anything he wanted to as women for enough money.
Yeah, exactly.
It's true. No.
In fact, he gave one up to be murdered by the king. So he's kind of a horrible person.
No. He is. He did. But let me re-incite. He ultimately is responsible for a whole lot of things that he's not responsible for. Because who killed that whore? Wasn't him. Joffrey was the one who shot her up. Now, ultimately, yeah, he's the one responsible. But that's what I'm saying. He doesn't do terrible things. He gets other people to do terrible things for him, which, in a sense, makes him more devil-like than any other character on the show, if you know what I mean. He's the man pulling the strings.
Right.
That's pretty terrifying. And I'm not saying it makes him a good guy. I never said he was a good guy. I think he's pretty dang
He will
evil.
eventually be the biggest villain in the story, I think, and he'll be the one standing at the very end that hopefully gets just destroyed.
Enough on Littlefinger and how much we love / hate him. Let's go ahead and take a quick Q&A break. First off, we want to say, once again, thank you so much for our partners at WeGetThisCovered.com. Check them out. They are all into one of the greatest sources out there for video game, movie, and TV news and reviews. And I want to go ahead and give a shout out to Dalton Stewart from the Good Trash Genre Cast. He tweeted in. He said, "I think the Unsullied pulled up some straight up SEAL Team 6 action," which I actually used in the episode. So Dalton, thank you so much for tuning in. We'll be hearing more from him later in the episode. But we actually do have a couple of questions coming in from the feed.
The first one's actually from Rachel, my fiance, who we're very close to our wedding. But anyway,
better watch out for the range of Castamere, man. I'm telling you.
She actually tweeted something at me today. She tweeted that she wants to play that at our wedding and see how many people run away or panic or whatever. So
I can cover. That's what I'm doing.
That's a really good idea.
But this is on the subject of Daenerys and her lack of mercy. She said her question is could she still be trying to find out what kind of leader she wants to be? Maybe answering injustice with justice could be her way of continuing to earn the Unsullied trust.
I think those are both really good. I think those are both really good points. And this is part of the lack of the show having that internal monologue, the internal monologuing that we get in the books, is we don't really get to see what she's thinking. I would say, based purely on surfaces and how it appears, I don't think she's struggling with the kind of leader she wants to be. I think she appears to be a very confident and determined leader. However, if you do go through and read the books and get some of the internal monologuing, she definitely has a lot of doubts and feels like she has to constantly assert herself because she is such a young woman. Because everyone always underestimates her, that she has to push harder. So I think that's actually a really good point, Rachel. A really great point, actually, that we don't quite get to see in the show. That she is still figuring things out, even if it's not so on the surface.
Yeah, I can see that, and I know that I can relate to that. A lot of times there are people that tend to make decisions because they are a little insecure about them. So I can see some of that in there, especially as you referenced. As a book reader, I get to see some of that anyway, where she does a lot of times she'll make a decision and come across to everyone very confident, and then you hear her think, was that the right decision? So I think there is a little bit of that there. I think that's good. And then the earning the Unsullied's trust. I think that's a good point. You know, we kind of touched on that already. She gave the Unsullied sort of a choice to follow her, and if she, you know, I think Austin brought it up, saying, you know, if she doesn't kill them, maybe the Unsullied don't say, well, if you're not going to punish them for having slaves, we don't really want to follow you. And so I think part of that could be there too. So I think that's a really good point too.
She's trying to make an example of these guys, essentially, right?
Right.
In order to keep her army in line, giving them what they want.
You know, that's a very important point. You got to watch out for those Unsullied, man.
The more I think about it, the more ideas pop in my head about her being such a young woman. She doesn't want to come across as weak, especially as a young queen with that many trained soldiers underneath her. That may be leading to her more aggressive stances on dealing with people and dealing with the leaders of other cities as she sacks them, essentially, on her march westward, I believe. Yeah, just that she doesn't want to appear weak.
Very true.
Including her own soldiers.
Yeah. Oh, and she is in a world, you know, a patriarchal society, both anywhere in that world of Westeros, either on the continent in Westeros or across the sea. I mean, it is a slave, male-dominated society. I mean, you have pockets where women have a little more liberation, but generally speaking, men don't take women seriously. They're like, what's going on, you know?
How many Dothraki are still with her, really? Has she lost most of those?
Can't even be that many.
We haven't seen any this season. I don't think there's not very many. I know last season we saw like there was maybe a dozen of them on the boat with her still, but I can't think of. They don't really showcase them as much, and a lot of them just keep dying. I felt bad all the way through season 2. They just kept dropping like flies. So
well, I mean, she started out with them basically sold to their king. You know, she was a prize, you know, for their allegiances. So she's really come a long way from being the what was her title? Khaleesi, you know, to actually ruling them instead of ruling next to the Khal, Drogo.
Let's go ahead and move into the Margaery and Olenna scene here. It is brief, and the reason I had it following the Littlefinger scene was because we do kind of get that segue in the episode where it cuts from Littlefinger and Sansa to the reveal that, Margaery or Olenna had something to do with this too.
It's a really good transition. He says, I have friends, giving them gifts, grow strong, and then immediately we get to see Alana and Tara. So it's a really intentional transition right there.
Yeah, I think so. And something you might have missed that they kind of, I mean, there's so much happening so fast is Elena's about to leave King's Landing. She's about to go away for long. I mean, obviously there could be a lot of reasons for that, but the number one being that, hey, she killed the king. She wants to get the heck out of there before anyone could possibly suspect that it's her. So we're about to lose a powerful figure there. Yeah,
she's definitely heading back to Highgarden to protect herself. I mean, especially after what she talks with, you know, her granddaughter, pretty much revealing the truth of what had happened. You know, I can't let you marry someone like that, basically, you know, alluding to the fact that she had him killed. And running away is just the next logical step in that world, because you know that she'd be put to death instantly. They don't care who she is.
Right. And any excuse. I mean, and she's smart enough. She can come up with a number of excuses for why she wants to get out of there. Yeah. She does reveal to Margaery, hey, I did this to protect you because you don't want to be married to that monster. Now I'm leaving it up to you. Here's what I think you should do. I think you should try and take control of Tommen while he's still weak and new to this kinghood, and while Cersei is distracted with the Tyrion's trial and the death of Joffrey. So pretty smart tactics, and she's like, that's all I can offer you. The rest of this is you're on your own.
And boy, does she take up that advice.
Oh, yeah. Immediately. You can see her and Tommen hook up a little bit here. First off, I want to give a shout out. Sir Pounce, what's up? Welcome to the show. I'm really glad you're on the show. You guys think I'm crazy. You watch out. That cat, man, he'll get you.
Cats are evil.
He's the one pulling Tommen's
new favorite character. He's going to smother him in his sleep, you know? He'll wait till he lay on his face.
Yeah, apparently Sir Pounce is actually a big deal. I have no idea why, because I'm not there yet. But
he's a cat. He's a cat. No. Sir Pounce a cat. That's why he's an internet sensation, because cats on the internet are just like, they're like a given. Of course they're awesome. I mean, come on. Next thing we know, we're going to see Sir Pounce playing a piano over there, you know? So we get to see Margaery crawl, Tommen's in there laying in bed, and then she sneaks in to just chat with him and say, hey, what's up, buddy? You're cool. We're going to get married. We're going to be doing it. So let's go ahead and be friends. Tommen, he's kind of a lucky son of a gun. Really, pretty pretty attractive
His
woman
piece of
coming
shit.
to visit him while he's lying in bed, and he's like, "Oh yeah, sure, we'll be friends."
His piece of shit brother dies, and then he gets this hot chick, and
he's winning.
Everything's
Great.
coming up, Tom.
Everything's coming up, Tommen.
And well, apparently he just had this conversation I went about, what it really means too. So, because back at the funeral, as everyone's walking off, he starts talking about, do you know what happens when a man and a woman, get married? And he says, but you know the details, is what Tywin says to Tommen. So Tommen's just recently found out this information, and then she approaches him in the middle of the night. So, that Tommen does look a little bit nervous.
He's connecting the dots right now. He's like,
oh, wait a second, you gotta have a baby to consummate, and consummate, that means, oh God, not bad, not bad. Hey, I am anticipating this is going to become a huge power play later on between Cersei and Marjorie, kind of this power struggle with who?
Well,
who do you listen to? Who do you listen to? Your mom, who's kind of lost it, or this really hot girl over here who, you could probably tell she might be pulling your strings a little.
Well,
she's a hot girl, so.
We know that Cersei has no problem having sex with family members, so she could compete with Marjorie.
What? Too far. Wow, way too far.
Wow.
What? Is son brother's okay, but son's not?
Way too far.
Listen, Austin, there's an age difference. There's one thing with incest, having incest your same age, but then there's like incest teenager with cougar. That's just no. It's a double. It's a double taboo,
she
man.
Did that with her cousin.
That's true. That happened already.
She already had. I don't even know if it ever really named him.
Yeah, his name was
Lancel.
Lancel.
A Lannister.
Yeah, Lancel. Yeah,
Lancel.
I'm just saying, maybe Marjorie's advantage is not that big of an advantage.
But listen, Tommen hasn't been corrupted by this world yet, okay? He's not cruel, and he's not into blonde-headed cougar milfs. I'm just getting a terrible vision of Cersei Lannister coming in, like, sexually flirting with her 12-year-old son. I mean, that's pretty messed up, guys. I mean, seriously, it's just like, whoa.
I'm sure some weird dude is in his basement typing that fan fiction as we speak.
Yes,
so if you really wanted to know what it'd be like, just go ahead and Google it.
It was a nice scene. It was just laying the groundwork for what's to come later in this season, most likely. So yeah, it was a nice scene.
Yeah, and it's cool to see Tommen actually has lines. All right, we're going to wrap up King's Landing by jumping into everyone's favorite scene. The Jaime and Brienne dynamic pseudo-romance continues as the two hook back up, and they're like, what's up? I love you, not really, type of way. But I thought that was really cool that Jaime ends up giving his Valyrian sword to Brienne so that she can go find Sansa and fulfill his oath. Yeah. And this is a great
I don't think
scene.
Tywin's going to be too happy about that.
Yeah, it was so symbolic of him giving her that sword. Because, when it's first, the two swords episode, and they forge them and he gets one, he kind of talked about, they kind of implied that they'd always wanted them, the Lannister family. And now he's just giving them away, to a woman that he could be in some deep trouble if his father finds out, especially who he gave it to and why.
Yeah, Tywin's not going to be happy, but what is Tywin really going to do, though?
Nothing, but
cut off his other
still
hand.
The principle of the thing. Yeah.
Two little hands.
He could do
and
that.
Was it just me? I'm big into the armor and the weapons of the show, trying to see them as best I can.
Yeah, absolutely.
Was the handle on that Valyrian sword, were those dragons? Or I thought they were lions, but today they look more like dragons when I was watching it.
I agree with you. I think they're supposed to be lions. It has to be, right? It's the Lannister family.
It would make sense to be lions. I need to go back and watch it again because, as we know, Valyrian steel is also made from what's called dragon's glass.
Yeah.
So it could be either way. Honestly, Ryan, I didn't catch that detail. Whenever I go back and rewatch this again, though, I'll definitely keep my eye out to see what that looks like.
It's either a dragon or a giraffe. I mean, I'd be cool with giraffe.
But little did you know, House Tarth, their sigil was the giraffe.
Giraffe, right.
Well, I mean, that would explain why she's like 32 feet tall. Right?
Yeah, but I thought this was...
yeah, he gives her some pretty useless armor. He's got no helmet.
She wouldn't wear a helmet anyway. She wouldn't wear a helmet anyway, let's be honest.
She just show off her beautiful locks.
Her long waving locks.
And come on, guys, look at those eyes. I mean, come on. Can you put helmets over those eyes? I just can't. It's an injustice. It was a very touching scene because I love the line she says, "I'll do it for Lady Catelyn." and for you.
Yeah.
And what she really means, I'll do it for you. And you get this bond here is just grown, and you can tell she really loves this guy a lot. Whether it's sexually or not, I'm not really sure. I mean, what do you guys can chime in on that? You think so? I always got this I always got this very platonic sense for the two of them. But I mean, she definitely loves him.
Brienne's all about it. I think Jamie's a little terrified though, a little bit.
Well, if she wants it, she's going to take it. If they were to hook up,
she would probably destroy him.
Every time I see her, all I think is, me want snoo snoo.
I had snoo snoo.
A new team up, guys. We thought Arya and the Hound was big. We thought Arya and anybody was good. We thought Jaime and Brienne was good. But no. We've got Podrick and Brienne.
This was weird. What was Podrick grinning about? I don't understand.
He was happy He was happy to have a purpose again. His whole life is to be a freaking squire, and he just got told to go away by the man he's like literally served so faithfully, and he's basically sent away. And now he's like, I don't have anything to do anymore.
He's gonna be out of. He's gonna be out of King's Landing. He's gonna be out of harm's way. So I think he's just a little bit excited to get to a safe spot. And he was.
Did anyone catch at the end of that scene when she turns to walk towards her horse? He's trying to like give her the hand up, like where he puts his hand, like he's gonna lift her up on the horse, like she needs that.
I totally saw that.
To like look down at him and then just like step over the horse because she's a giant woman and just riding it like it's like a little pony. Like her feet are dragging the ground as she goes.
Just waiting for her to pick up the horse and carry it.
Right? Carry the horse on her back. Yeah. Hey man, Brienne, freaking love her. That's great. But yeah, the scene with Podrick was really funny, Austin. I mean, it's nice to see a character who's actually cheerful about something, and he's had to deal with so much, Podrick. He's had to lose his master essentially. I mean, come on, he's got to do something.
He's like Samwise Gamgee. That's what he is.
Hey,
he is just really happy to serve people.
Well, speaking of Lord of the Rings references, what I thought was really great was when Bronn gives Podrick Tyrion's axe.
You have my sword. And you have my bow.
And my axe.
But honestly, though, I thought it was very appropriate that she named it Oathkeeper because it is that symbolic passing of the torch. He is known as the Oathbreaker. And the only oath he really has left to keep, he passes on to someone who actually keeps it.
I was really hoping she wouldn't name it so that the Hound could just be right.
I am tapping the Hound right now. Mr. Hound, what did you think about Oathkeeper? I really like that name. What's up with that sword name?
So she named your sword.
Lots of people name their swords.
Lots of cowboys.
That's pretty dark, man. Yeah, the Hound just doesn't like people very much, guys. I mean, even awesome, swords like Oathkeeper, he just doesn't like it.
The Hound's just a realist.
He's a real pessimist. Yes, realist. Yeah, sure. Did you?
Dead people don't eat silver.
The Hound is going to live a long time. I'm convinced of that. He's going to live a very long time, and I'm sad we didn't get to see him this week. It was a travesty. Hopefully next week.
I'm sure we'll see the Hound again next week.
Yeah.
That storyline doesn't have a lot going, as much as I love it. So this is not me discounting, but there's not as much going on in that. So they don't. I mean, it's not necessary that they follow it every single week. But anyway,
just walk into a new tavern every week and kill 6 or 8 people.
Yeah, I mean that's what I'm saying. It would just be a great spin-off. It would just be a great spin-off anyway. Arya and the Hound taking fools out like Kill Bill style. That'll be 2 chickens. Yeah.
If they're smart, they'll go search for Sansa in the only family she has left in the Vale.
Yeah.
But we'll see.
My man Bronn stealing the scene. What do you want? A kiss? Get out of here, Hands in the axe is like beat feet.
Oh, absolutely. Well, I mean, I think there's a lot to this scene, but it was just nice to get a real touching moment. And yeah, I mean, obviously we can't hyperanalyze that a million different ways, but again, Jaime is on a redemptive arc, even with the rape thing, whatever happened last week. Even though he's colored, still very ambiguous, I still think this goes to show that he really does want the best for his family and the world he's in.
When Jaime is not with Cersei, I love him. He's the greatest. He's just one of my favorite characters now.
We're gonna hop on north to the Wall, and before we go to the Wall, I want to have a brief little discussion here, and this is great because we've got me and Daniel are both book readers, and Ryan and Austin are not. So I think we are in some exciting territory right now. So everything that happened north of the Wall and north of the Wall, it's off the map. Book readers we've never seen any of this. This is
right,
and I think this is a great time to talk about the differences between the book and the show. The show adds in a lot of scenes. It adds in a lot of stuff we don't see in the books, but it doesn't really change the nature of what's going on. Like everything that happens probably happened in the world of the books. We just didn't see it. It's kind of the vibe that we've gotten off everything so far. But what we saw on Sunday night was this show going off the rails and doing something totally new that none of us have expected by changing Bran's storyline, for one, and then two, totally revealing something that's probably in the books that we haven't gotten to yet as book readers. So it's this crazy, like, unknown territory. We're like, whoa, what's going on? For us, it was so exciting because I was like sitting there for the last 10 minutes. I'm like, what the heck's going on? I don't know where we're going. You know,
it's like how I feel every week. It's amazing.
I haven't felt this way since I finished season 2.
Yeah, I don't know. I thought the last 15 minutes of the episode really just grabbed my attention, and it just overshadowed the whole episode. You know, in that moment emotionally, anyway.
It's because you know what to expect the whole time. And all of a sudden, you're like, wait a second, this isn't right.
Yeah. First off, we might get a reunion, a Stark reunion. I mean, a Snow Stark reunion. Actually, it looks pretty inevitable that it's actually going to happen.
It seems almost impossible that it can't happen.
Not going to happen. Every time the Starks get together, people die.
Well, people are going to die. That's the point.
People are going to die. That's why the
Starks die.
Well, okay, there's that.
I don't think that either of those Starks can die right now, hopefully.
Yeah,
if it does, I'm probably going to have a very powerful rage.
So that's kind of cool, though, that we might actually get to see them kind of reunite. So that would be fun. I mean, it'll be amidst a huge probably bloodbath, but hey, they'll get to see each other, so that'll be cool.
And even if they do stop and reunite, I think it's really easy to write in I know, John, but I have to keep going north. You go back to protect the wall, and then they part. I mean,
I think it'll be like that. Yeah, it'll be much more, hey, all right, well, we're on different paths now, so see ya. Like, because they're on different paths. They're not looking to go the same way. You know, Bran has already been, Sam. He saw Sam. He had the chance to go see Jon, and he chose not to because he feels like his path is leading in a different direction. And we know that Jon won't decide to go with Bran because he, has his way. But it'll still be cool to maybe see that reunion even if it's just for a couple moments.
And they teased it last season when Bran was up in that tower and Jon was down there. You're like, oh, come on, really? They're gonna get this close?
Right. This last 15 minutes was extremely just dark, just from the guy, I don't even know can't remember his name.
His name is Carl.
Carl, yeah. Drinking from the cup, and then he just seems like a psycho, crazy, angry man.
Carl Tanner from Gin Alley, drinking wine from the skull of Gior. Fucking Mormon. Any command for us, Lord Commander? What's that? Fuck 'em till they're dead. Did you hear that, boys? Fuck 'em till they're dead. I was a fucking legend, Gin Alley. A fucking legend. I would take any night, any time.
Like, when I envision hell, this is what hell looks like in my mind. Like, it's all fiery, there's like cannibals, rape going on everywhere. Like, holy crap, it's just dark. And I thought it was a nice reminder to remind us that the Night's Watch is still a bunch of like killers, right? Prisoners, people who have broken the law. And while maybe not all of them are killers, there are people like this, sociopaths, psychopaths, who do exist inside this group.
They're like the Oakland Raiders. That's kind of what they are.
Wow.
Woo, those Raiders. He gave a nice little monologue there about how he was the greatest killer in King's Landing, yada yada yada. Before
he just seems so angry. Like, he's just angry at everything.
I was a legend. I was a legend of the alley.
He probably cussed more this entire episode than we've seen the entire season so far. He's just so upset and angry about everything. I just found that kind of humorous, but yeah, he's definitely dark and kind of a psycho.
This actor is Burn Gorman, and you've actually seen him. I guarantee you, everyone who's watching this show, even if they hadn't seen, I mean, like this actor is one of those guys you see him like, I know this guy from somewhere. Well, he's actually a really, really great little character actor from he's played in Dark Knight Rises, Pacific Rim more recently, and Layer Cake.
Yeah.
And man, he just plays this like total psychopath like it's no one's business. And I just want to give a shout out to this guy because he was really good. Really, really good. Small character actor that I know. I mean, I know I was talking to Austin. He's like, yeah, I know that guy from somewhere. Where do I know him from? Well,
his face was like a younger William Dafoe. That's what he looked like.
He actually plays characters that are kind of like Willem Dafoe, too, honestly.
Willem Dafoe does not age. Willem Dafoe just becomes more powerful. he's like Dorian Gray. There's just a picture of Willem Dafoe that's like all gray and old looking, and he's just standing there, still with his huge chiseled like pumpkin head. And I've always thought that about Willem Dafoe. He may actually be the devil. I've seen a few movies where he plays the devil.
He plays Jesus. What are you talking about?
Yeah, he plays. Well, that would be. Who is the least person you would suspect to be the devil? Someone who played Jesus.
It would be Jesus, that's right.
Checkmate.
Now they're staring at 6 men with guns drawn. It was a fucking ambush. This was a fucking bomb dropping on Beaver Cleaverville. For a few seconds, this place was Armageddon. There was a firefight!
I'm fairly worried for the Reeds and Bran right now with him. Yeah, I'm kind of scared for them right now. I don't know what he's going to do.
So
yeah, I'd kind of forgotten about the boy Reed. I can never remember all their names. His epilepsy or whatever his issue is, where he's having the seizures.
Right.
I thought I had missed where he'd been injured and he was kind of succumbing to gangrene or something, the way he was sweating and how horrible he looked that whole time. And then part of me is like, is he putting on a show and he's going to start kicking ass all of a sudden when they come over to check him out?
That's what I was hoping for, because it looked like that looked staged in some way. Like he looked over it at his friend and then he just like fell down and started seizuring. At the same time, it didn't seem to like work out that well. If he was trying to protect Bran and keep him from having to reveal his identity, it didn't work because Bran did exactly that.
Well, it was so he could save Jojen there for a second, and
right.
Bran revealing, and the thing is, these guys actually know who he is too. They're like, oh my gosh, that's Jon Snow's brother. Hey, all of a sudden we've got someone who's worth something, and I don't know about you guys, I wouldn't want to be worth something with these guys.
They could probably get away with eating Bran's legs. He doesn't really need them.
Wow.
I mean, that's less work for Hodor anyway. I mean, less weight.
Speaking of Hodor,
yes.
Those bastards.
Hodor! Hodor!
If I was your size, I'd be king of the fucking world.
Those bastards were shoving Hodor, man. I was like, he was so sad. He's like, Hodor!
I'm waiting for Hodor to unleash the beast and just like pick his feet up over his head and rip him in half like a piece of paper and just like throw him aside and go full Hodor mode on everybody. Just dual wielding 2 axes and just spinning in a circle like a tornado, Tasmanian devil style. Oh, Hodor!
Just wait, what's going to happen? At the very least, Bran is going to take control of Hodor and use Hodor to just murder.
I'm just waiting to see what happens. What happens
to that?
Yeah, they did. I think Bran at some point in this battle,
I'd run the world.
I think at some point Bran's gonna warg into either Hodor or one of those wolves. We got so excited about all this stuff at Crashers Keep that we forgot to talk about the Wall, and there actually is some really great developments here at the Wall this week. The least of which is Locke finally, crazy killer cut off Jaime Lannister's hand for no reason. Locke showed up at the Wall. And he's not doing what I thought he was going to do. I thought he was going to show up and just go like gung-ho or meet with Alistair Thorne and be like, I want that guy, and just take him. No, he's playing real close, low to the ground. And he's
actually sort of befriending Jon. Jon sort of seems to kind of take a liking to him.
At this point, you have to assume that he is there because of Roose Bolton sending him after Jon Snow. I took it that way because it just seems like if there's one person left who could really stand an immediate threat to Roose Bolton being Warden of the North, it's Jon Snow if he were to leave the Night's Watch and come try to find him after everything that's happened with Robb and him murdering his family basically. Jon Snow's a big threat to him right now, so I'm assuming that's why he sent Locke.
Oh yeah, and Locke's there basically to take out Jon Snow, or to either take them out. I think the original. If we go back and watch the second episode, he actually wants Bran and Rickon brought to Bolton.
Yeah,
I believe, and he thinks that Jon Snow is the key to finding Bran and Rickon. And he actually is not too far. I was like, oh, well, this guy has no idea what's actually going on. But actually, the way events are unfolding on the show, it looks like Jon Snow is going to lead him to Bran next week with the whole Crashers Keep thing.
Yeah.
So
I've kind of forgotten about that part of that episode where they were talking about Bran and Rickon.
I'm interested to see what Locke does, because I thought this guy was going to be very predictably crazy and do something, gung-ho. But no, he's smarter and more cunning than I give him credit for, I guess.
Yes, he probably is. But he has done some pretty ridiculously crazy things in the past, like cut off Jaime Lannister's hand for no reason.
And then watch Bran get beat up by a bear.
I have a feeling his demise is soon. He's definitely going to try an attempt to kill Jon Snow and Bran, or at least capture them or something. But I don't think he's going to be very successful in this. So,
but the real WTF moment was there at the last 4 minutes of the episode, was when we actually get to see what the White Walkers have been doing with these kids when they go.
I do. It is important, and this goes along with it. It's important that the wives, Craster's wives, are saying a gift to the gods, a gift to the gods. They sort of chant that when the sun. Also, the lady that brings it in says this is Craster's last child, which is not true. Gilly actually has one of Craster's child. I think that's going to be important. I don't know why. But so this is actually not Craster's last son. So Craster actually has a son that's making it.
Gilly's doomed. The Thins are going to eat her for sure.
But anyway, so I think before we move on to that scene, those are some things that I thought were important that we should just point out.
That actually is the last son of Craster. And guys, I just want to remind everyone, Craster wasn't joking around when he said he was a godly man. Remember last? He's like, I'm a godly man. Yeah. That's the only reason I'm letting you stay in my house. But let's go ahead and talk about this.
They have an army of a bunch of inbred, genetically deficient White Walkers now.
No. But see, we don't know what happens when they become White Walkers. Okay. Sorry, I just got an image of a bunch of retarded White Walkers.
White Walkers. Matt Damon.
It's a bunch of it's a bunch of Gilly-looking White Walkers.
And apparently, the leader of the White Walkers is the Sith.
At last we will reveal ourselves to the Jedi. At last we will have revenge.
You have been well trained, my young apprentice. They will be no match for you.
Yeah, the Sith, man.
Darth Maul.
So we get to see him take this baby to the Fortress of Solitude.
You do not remember me. I am Jor-El. I'm your father.
I don't know if you guys got this vibe. I know we've talked about this already off air or whatever, but I don't know. I got the feeling that there's the appearance of the first White Walker, the White Walker that brings the baby up and lays them down on the altar, and then the second guy that walks him up. They look different to me.
Definitely.
The second guy looks a little bit more like living, organic, and not zombie from the dead like, and it looked to me he looked more human-esque than the other guy did. So I feel like just from the impression of him, I felt like there was a brain and a thought process there. I guess I'm not saying this is true, but from the White Walkers, I'd kind of always assume there's these not so much brain thought-oriented people. But I mean, I could be way off. We know nothing about them. But
no, that's totally true. And you can tell they're clothed. They wear clothing. They look like a civilized, organized society of some sort, not just mindless hive mind kind of stuff.
Yeah, no.
They are a culture of some kind.
Yeah, absolutely. And, this has kind of been my suspicion as I've watched the show and read the books that the White Walkers weren't just zombies. I mean, you obviously get that impression from really early on, but the more we've seen them develop, they ride horses and the way they walk.
They use weapons, too. I mean, you had the ice spear and...
Oh, yeah,
Right.
yeah. So they're definitely a developed culture. So I guess the question is, and I'm really glad that we actually got that reveal, that yes, this guy who's been taking the babies, that's his job is to bring the babies to this place where they create more White Walkers. And there's definitely a sense of leadership that last one had, that he looked more human, more organic. He had, like you said, had clothes on. This guy is definitely more of like a king leader figure.
And as I pointed out, like I guess we've been saying this seemed to represent some crown type thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this opens the door, I think, to a lot of speculation, because it starts begging the question, where do the White Walkers come from?
So this is something that's interesting, though, because I had always assumed that it was the same kind of White Walker collecting all the babies, but Sam killed one of them.
Right.
Right.
Meaning that guy, there's more than one of them. So you have kind of like three classes, as we have seen. You have I think they're called just the Whites, which are like kind of reincarnated people.
Yeah, the Whites are just the zombies that come back from the dead.
Yeah, and then you have the type of guys that collect the babies and are riding the horses and stuff. They all kind of look the same, apparently. And then you have these new ones that we've seen that are like wearing clothing and look more civilized and kind of sentient, and
right.
And so it's interesting. We see like different, almost classes of
right.
their society.
I don't know if this is important or not. This could be completely irrelevant. My roommate actually brought it up first, and then I was talking to Caleb, and I don't know if it's significant or not, but you actually see 13 of them. I went back and counted the second time I watched it. You see 13 of them standing there. I don't know if that's significant. That could literally mean nothing at all, but we know there's more than one, for sure. There's just a lot here that we don't really know what's going on. We really just don't know what's going on here.
Yeah, we don't know what's going on, but you just get a peek to see. You get another breadcrumb in this whole White Walker mystery that we haven't really had a breadcrumb from in quite some time. So this is really interesting. We see they are civilized, and I have a theory. You guys can tell me if you think I'm crazy or not. Bran is chasing this whole three-eyed crow figure.
Okay, good. I'm glad you're saying this, because I've already had similar thoughts, but go ahead.
Okay, so my thought is he's chasing this three-eyed crow figure. This three-eyed crow figure who we don't know much about, who is in the north, way beyond the wall. And now we're getting a little glimpse at the White Walkers and how their society works. So what if Bran is going to visit this great other, right, who might be the king of the White Walkers? We've heard Melisandre talk about the great other, or she's mentioned the great other, the enemy, and how she serves the Lord of Light, and basically the enemy is north. So I'm getting this figure that maybe Bran is pursuing the guy who's the head of the White Walkers. I'm not saying he's a good guy or a bad guy, but it is kind of interesting. I think that this Bran storyline is tying a lot closer to the White Walkers than we've been led on to just yet.
But didn't they? So that's confusing to me, because the last visions that Bran had seemed to send him to King's Landing.
No, it didn't. He's still going north. He saw King's Landing, doesn't mean he sent him to King's Landing.
Well, he said, "I know where we need to go," or whatever.
But he also saw north. He saw a lot of stuff.
Okay. Well, I assumed, I took from those visions that he needed to go to King's Landing, but here I'm wrong.
Well, and that's why the visions are so tricky to portray on the show. It's so ambiguous, like what do they mean or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So, any other thoughts?
I always took it that the three-eyed raven was like the personification, well, not personification, animalification of the old gods. That he's going to the Weir Tree, or
right,
called the Weir Tree, and seeing them in connection with that, I always assumed it was the old gods of his, the Starks from thousands of years ago, kind of coming back into his life because of his abilities. And I'd never thought of it as the White Walker. That would be really interesting. I really hope, if you noticed when those guys came on, there was an opening into that mountain, the Fortress of Solitude. I'm really hoping they go inside and we see more of that.
Yeah, same here. I think there's so much more for us to learn about that. Daniel, what are you thinking about this theory?
What if, I know we talked about the voice, the voice back in Bran's vision, like what if it was this guy, or was kind of like what if, having those what if thoughts. Or what if the three-eyed crow is a symbol for one of these people that are above the White Walker, the leaders of the White Walkers or whatever. I don't know really how to word it because I don't know much about it, but my mind went there like yours did. So yeah, I don't know what to think, but I think might be something there.
Yeah, I'm definitely feeling like the voice he's chasing is definitely tied to the White Walkers, and my theory is that it is like this other that Melisandre's talking about. It could be the King of the White Walkers or somehow tied to them. I'm not really sure. And that's what's really great about the scene is it gave us just enough to start speculating about crazy. But yeah, it's really great because we're heading into this bold new area where the showrunners are putting stuff that not even us book readers know that might be in the books later, probably are going to be in the books later, but we don't know about them yet because the show's trying to lay down the groundwork for an ending. So it's kind of created this really weird dynamic. So what do? Do you give a spoiler warning before each episode to say spoilers for book readers in case you want to find out that way? You know, I mean, what do you do?
I have no problem with it, obviously, because I haven't read the books. But what do you? There's nothing you can do, really. You have to recognize at this point, and you definitely know now, that the show is going to tell you things. If you've read the books and you don't want to be spoiled for the books, the show is going to tell you things that you don't want to know. I think you just have to kind of sit back, not take it too seriously, and kind of enjoy both for what they are, and know that the show is going to add things that you don't know about, and it's going to be fun.
Yep. Just kind of lay back, kick your legs up, and just take it all, baby.
Yep.
Whatever they give you, you just got to roll with it.
Just got to roll with it. Yeah, and I'm definitely, and we've talked about the podcast before, I really like the idea that these two are their own entities that complement each other, but they also exist on their own. You don't need the books to watch the show, and you don't need the show to read the books, but if you do, it makes it enhances the entire experience. But they are still each their own things, and guess what? TV works a little different than books does, so that means maybe putting some breadcrumbs out there that the books don't have to, because it's a different media.
Right, exactly.
But yeah, this could be the tip of the iceberg, ladies and gents. Though we could be getting a lot more stuff like this, and that has me very excited because it's like we're getting hints to answers that we book readers might not get for a long time. Because George R. R. Martin sure is taking a sweet, pretty time writing these books.
Okay, fine. What kind of pizzas do you want?
What kind do we want? He hasn't even ordered your pizzas yet.
Don't worry, they're coming. Not just 2 pizzas. There's going to be 5, and they're going to be huge. You won't believe it.
Yeah, I was looking up on the Twitter world Sunday night, and I actually saw several posts where several book readers were upset.
Mm-hmm.
I heavily disagree. This is one of my favorite episodes of the season so far because, as a book reader, and they were upset because they changed it was more than just the argument if they just changed it and stuff like that. They felt like the show was trying to take too much of a separation, I guess, from the universe. But I felt the exact opposite. I was like, wow, this is like they're setting up so much stuff that like you were saying, like they have to do as a show that's different from the book, because the book doesn't really have to do the things as a show does. And I don't know, I thought this was one of my more favorite episodes of this, and as a book reader, and so I just thought that was interesting that there was some hate out there from book readers.
Yeah, you can't. I've just come to the conclusion you cannot please book purists. Like, no matter what you do it exactly the way it's written, and it's not creative enough. But then if you change it, it's like, whoa, why would you do that? I don't understand. So now it's and it's really funny for book readers though. It's kind of reversed because normally book readers are like, oh, wait until you check this out. Like, oh, because we know, because we read the books. We worked for this. We read the books first. Now it's like, oh, what's up? You don't really know what's going on either. Join the club.
You know nothing, Jon Snow.
You just have to be able to take things with a grain of salt and be willing to give up the idea that the book is the definitive version of whatever. I mean, yes, it is the original, but the show is an adaptation, and it's going to be different. And that doesn't make one better than the other. It just means these are different. And you have to be able to appreciate each one of them on their own. And if you can't do that, then you really are missing out on a really great TV show. It's kind of like people who complain about movies like it wasn't exactly the same as the book. And I have to say, honestly, Game of Thrones is probably one of the most loyal adaptations I've ever seen. Oh yeah, of anything, any movie or TV show. It's like incredibly. I mean, like they add in stuff. The things they add in really enhance what's going on. And it's just one of those things. Like at this point, I don't have much sympathy for book readers who are complaining. I really don't see what there's to complain about. You just got a little. I don't either. You just got a little mini. I mean, it's a spoiler, but you could say you're spoiled properly. Yes, it's not in the books, and it's probably going to be in the books. But guess what? You found out through a very legitimate source that's just as good as reading the books, right?
And from what I understand of the books, based on what I've read and the reactions and stuff, it was hinted at anyway. It just confirmed something that you already kind of knew.
No. Maybe the White Walkers were civilized, maybe, but we had no freaking clue what they were doing with those babies, not remotely.
Well, but the story of the kind of, since HBO spoiled it anyway, the Night King, wasn't that already like known to the readers?
No. Yes and no. The Night King. Let's go ahead and get into this theory. One of the speculations that HBO accidentally leaked. I guess it looks like they leaked the name of the White Walker who turned the baby into a White Walker, named the Night King.
Right.
Now, the book has not told you everything there is about the Night King at all. More or less, it is basically Bran is recounting some of the bedtime stories he heard about the Night King, and he's kind of a myth.
Right.
He's kind of like a myth, and we've heard a little bit about him. Yes, you know he exists, and you know that he's a presence that probably exists beyond the wall, but you really don't know much about him. So you obviously have no idea that this guy is leading the White Walkers, or apparently leading the White Walkers. But he is a character that is known in the books that is not known in the show.
Yeah, his name just sort of every now and then, sort of like I was saying. You get to see his name, but don't really know anything about him.
It's a rumor, like kind of myth is that he's actually one of the Starks, way from the Starks of old, named Brandon, of course. So yeah, I mean, I honestly I suggest listeners who are more curious about the Night King go look it up on the Wiki of Ice and Fire. There could be some potential spoiler stuff because some of the things Bran thinks about with that character don't come into play until book 5, but it's more of like a history. It's more of a history and like knowledge of the myths of Westeros than it is like an actual plot point.
I think that kind of answers a little bit the question that had come in a little bit regarding the HBO kind of mistake releasing a little bit of that
could just really be foreshadowing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I guess just him alluding to it, and you know when he's telling the stories, building up to what could happen. I mean, it's all the same. Because in the mythology, didn't they fight a war against the White Walkers, and that's why they ended up building the wall itself because of that war? The Starks built the wall, right?
It's along those lines, basically.
Yeah, there was a big war with like kind of mythical beings, and what it is the White King apparently fell in love. He was the Lord of the Night's Watch, I think like 13th Lord of the Night's Watch or something like that, and fell in love with a lady from north of the wall who pretty much was a White Walker. I mean, they don't call her one, but she's got blue eyes and pale skin and stuff like that. And then eventually the Wildlings and the Night's Watch team up to take him down.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, it is, again, it's been foreshadowed a little bit. I do think this is a pretty big, if you book purist, which if you're a book purist, I wouldn't be watching the show, like truly. But book spoiler, quote unquote, yeah, these are things that you wouldn't be, I don't think you'd be able to necessarily piece them all together. So it is a bit of a reveal. Moving away from the specifics of the scene, though, I think overall this is a really powerful way to end the episode. It was really cool because you kind of get this sense of how big the world is as the White Walker's riding his horse into the Fortress of Solitude mountain thing, and just the way go back and watch it again. The way it's filmed, it brings such an epic feel to this show.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
And it shows how that there's more to going on than we even realized. Like we're all, we just a couple scenes ago we're like, oh, Bran's leaving King's Landing, and we're like, White Walkers making babies into White Walkers. You know what I mean? Like, it just shows you there's so much that's actually going on that people don't even, the world doesn't even realize is happening yet.
Yeah, and you know what? Roose Bolton better watch out because soon there's gonna be an army of White Walker babies marching towards the wall. So too bad they killed all the Starks, and the Night's Watch is gonna be dead by that point. So.
The Steward of the North will be the only one left.
Jon Snow is our Lord and Savior. So, all right, guys.
Jesus Snow.
Jesus Snow. We are going to go ahead and move into part 2 of our listener Q&A. Once again, I want to say if you aren't catching the show live, you can always find us on Twitter at cast_beyond_GOT. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/castbeyondthewall, and you can submit questions there, and we will definitely read them on the air. And we do have a little tweet shout out from Dalton Stewart from the Good Trash Genre Cast that I highly recommend you check out. And he was just saying, Pod and Brienne is the best team up yet. Can't wait to see more. So, very excited. Thank you, Dalton. And as far as questions, we have one coming in from Matt Andrews. A second question coming in from Matt Andrews on this show. He says, the scene with Melisandre gave a picture of eternal foes singular. In the picture we saw in this Sunday's episode, we saw 13 of these that would probably have to be underneath the main other. And now we have the Lord of Light. So basically he's saying that we probably haven't seen the leader of the White Walkers yet. We saw these 13 guys that all look like they're in the same league, right? But is there a guy who's even higher up than them? I guess we did touch on that a little bit.
Yeah, and
the White Walker Council, you know. There's still, you know, the Prime Minister, White Walker.
Yeah, as he's saying, like Melisandre there is the Lord of Light, and so there is the other, and these are kind of his, like you said, his council members.
Yeah, or like we saw in even in Karth, you know, there was the 13, and then there was that dude who crowned himself King of Karth. So there is a comment from Bethany Lucari who she says that she thinks that I just have a man crush on Littlefinger, which is blinding me from the truth that he's a horrible scumbag. Man crush, no. Well,
who are your two favorite characters? I want to point this out real fast. Pretty much Littlefinger and Jorah, right? That basically your
Jorah's
main,
not my favorite. No, Jorah's not my favorite. Jaime and Tyrion, Tywin, all above Jorah. I like Jorah. I just think it's
okay. Okay, well, fair enough. I was gonna point out a trend of you liking pedophiles. But...
I do not like pedophiles. Oh my gosh.
Well, this IP address just got written down, and a black van is on its way.
Listen, man. Favorite characters right here. And for those of you who didn't listen last season, just so we all set the record straight, Littlefinger is up there because of just who he is, and I've already gone on about that. But I also love Tyrion. But we usually roll Tyrion out of favor just because he's like a given. I actually like Tywin quite a bit, even though he's a cold, hard man. He is really dang good at what he does. I like Jaime because he's so complex and interesting, and unlike most characters on this show, he has a lot of demons he's battling, and I feel like legitimately he's trying to be a better person. I really do. And that, for me, that's always the thing that really sells me on a character. There's your little fingers of the worlds of fiction where you're like, wow, that character's so good at what they do, I have to respect him. But honestly, characters I really like the most are usually people striving to make themselves better. They're trying to overcome their demons to make themselves better. And that is why Jaime's up there. But, you know, and Arya, just because Arya's a freaking bamf. I mean, just look at her. But yes, set the record straight. I do like Littlefinger a lot. I like things about him, and I respect him so much so that it could appear that I have a man crush. But man crush, no. And I have blind loyalty. All right, everybody. Well, I think that about wraps up our Q&A for this week. Again, I highly recommend you send us something on our social media that I just pointed out, and I hope we can hear and read off your questions next week. Lastly, I just want to go ahead and remind everyone to check out WeGotThisCovered.com. It's a great source for movie, video game, and TV news. They're our partners here, and they do one heck of a job. Really been checking out their webpage a lot, and they pretty much have information on everything. So you could say they've got it covered. All right, everybody. Well, now that we have recapped Oathkeeper, we've talked about the craziness and the White Walkers and all these nutso stuff going on here. It's blowing our minds. Let's go ahead and talk about next week's episode, the first of his name.
8,000 unsullied, 2,000 second sons.
Would that be enough to take King's Landing?
One stone crumbles and another takes its place.
He sits the throne like he was born to it. Why does he feel responsible for you? What wife would do for you the things I've done for you?
What the hell you doing?
You mustn't let anything stop you.
You move at sundown.
So we've got a very, as per usual, a very vague and bland little synopsis here. Cersei and Tywin plot the crown's next move. Dany discusses future plans, and Jon embarks on a new mission.
More of the same, basically. These are all the same plot lines we already hit this week. They're just going to continue them. So, sounds good.
Right. We didn't get to see Tywin, I don't think, did we? Yeah, we didn't get to see Tywin this episode, so that'll be cool to see him again. Because as of you, I'm somewhat of a fan of Tywin, so that'll be good. But yeah, it's just the same.
Still no Greyjoys. Greyjoys, and I'm very sad.
I was gonna mention that Greyjoys double fast. I do think it's interesting. I think the Greyjoys are definitely gonna be a big part at some point here in the near future. But I think it's really weird they had that scene at the end of last season, and that's gone to nothing yet. 2, I bet we haven't seen Theon since episode 2. I almost guarantee we will have to see him next episode. He's working with Ramsay to take Moat Caitlin or whatever. So I'm sure that'll pop up.
And they eat Sam, and everybody's happy.
Oh God, you call me evil for liking Littlefinger, and you're all about eating Sam.
I feel like the Thins are the answer to all my problems in this show. They're just gonna eat everybody I don't like. It's gonna be great.
We want to thank Ryan Siggers so much for joining our episode this week. He's having some technical difficulties, so he's kind of poofed from the show. But Ryan Siggers, thank you so much for hopping on our show as a guest host this week. We love all your input, and thank you so much for asking questions on our live Q&A sessions. Hopefully we'll hear from more of you this season. And I look forward to having a guest host on again next week when Lady Jessica Barton joins the show. And tune in next week when we review the first of his name, and hopefully we'll get to see some more action. And lastly, I'm really excited, and I hope we finally get to see a nice Stark reunion.
Well, I have no idea what this is about because it was just listed as a blank hangout on an itinerary.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
She's jumped in.
Sorry to crash the party. This is real bad.
Oh no! This is cool. This is cool. If you like Game of Thrones, you're in the right place. But if not, I'm sorry.
I don't even know what that is.
Okay. Well, hey, there you go.
Oh, you're killing me.
Matt, thank you so much for tuning in while we are on our break to ask the question. Do you think a pit of rape would have been a better death for Joffrey? Hells yeah.
Man, that's my roommate. That's my roommate.
I think that's
gonna get cut from the show.